What's going on, everybody? Tello Talk Podcast back here with another episode. Today is episode 15. Today, I've got a very special guest on, the one, the only Zach Stefanich. Um, Me and him, we're in the same fraternity in at the University of Idaho. Um, and Zach, I'll let you introduce yourself. Say something about yourself before we get started.
Uh, I'm Zach. Let's see. I was born in Minnesota. I'm a Vikings fan, obviously. You know how it is. Having a great year this year.
Yeah,
Currently live in Oregon. Go to U of I. I'm in Theta Chi with Bryce, and yeah,
yeah. He's a great person also. Don't forget about that. He's a great guy. But
thank
as
you.
you heard, he's a big Vikings fan, and me as a Saints fan, I always have a little vendetta against him just because. Um,
Well,
but today we're gonna be me, especially going over the Week 10 recap. What happened this last week? Tomorrow I'll have another one in person with one of my buddies who's on here a lot. Cameron. We'll be talking about our Week 11 picks, but um, I brought Zach on especially because of the Minnesota Buffalo game, and we'll actually get started right now with that game. This game has been said everywhere. This is the game of the year. Like this game was incredible.
easily.
The 17-point comeback in the second half for the Vikings. I mean, Buffalo almost just like collapsed, and um, the Vikings, I hate saying it, but they look so legit this year. Like Justin Jefferson, if you don't look at him as a top three wide receiver, you're absolutely stupid. And
Exactly. Here's what
Dalvin Cook as well, just incredible. This team's amazing. And let's hear your output on this, Steph. I want to hear it.
I mean, being a Minnesota sports fan overall, it's hard. Like we're always middle of the pack. We always think we're gonna do every year. We always have a pretty decent team, but we always get screwed in the playoffs or just always fall short. But I'm feeling like this is the year, especially with this new TJ Hawkinson pickup. That trade was crazy.
That's a
You
great
know,
pick.
huge pickup. He hasn't done a whole lot yet this year, but I'm expecting a lot from him heading into the latter part of the season and then into the postseason games also. So I'm really hoping for a lot out of him and obviously Justin Jefferson.
Oh
He's
yeah.
a he's a top two receiver and he ain't number two. You know what
I don't
I
know if I'd say he's one, but
mean?
he's
And
up
Kirk
there.
Cousins. I mean, it's Kirk Cousins. Like he plays like Kirk Cousins. It's Kirk Cousins, but he's having a spectacular year. I'm expecting a Pro Bowl out of him this year again, back to back because he was in it last year, right?
I believe he was in the Pro Bowl last year. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a few Pro Bowlers on the team this year, and I'm hoping for a lot. We're we're number one right now. We're third in the power rankings, but I'm expecting a lot this year.
I mean, as you should. 7 game winning streak right now. I mean, Justin Jefferson week in week out's getting 100 yards. It seems like.
Yeah, I know.
It's just that especially with. Okay, can we talk about that catch? Actually, can we
Crazy.
talk about that catch on 4th and 18? I mean, when they needed him the most, he delivered.
He did deliver. Snagged that
It's
thing right out of that Bills player's hands, one-handed grab. People have been saying it's better than the OBJ catch. I don't know if I'd go that far, but that is one of the best catches I've ever seen, without a doubt.
I mean, I don't know, man. I might say it is because I just think situational wise, that catch is better.
Yeah, it was no, it was crazy. Like, no, sorry, it was crazy. Like, especially on the 4th and 18. Yeah, we were down by what, 3 or 4? Did a
It
field
might have
goal
been. I
because
think it was a 4 point game at that point.
because Greg Joseph missed that extra point a field goal would have tied it up. But
Yeah.
that catch was crazy. We needed him. He pulled out. Everything happened like it needed to, and then we got stopped in the goal line, but we prevailed.
Oh yeah, they definitely did prevail. Big thing, another big thing. Uh, Pat Pete, 2 interceptions. Both of them
Yeah,
actually in the end zone. One of them game-winning interception. Uh, he's kind of in that game, he looked a lot like Arizona Pat Pete. He didn't look like old slow Pat Pete in that game. For the defense for the Vikings, I just kind of want to know your opinion on their defense and just kind of how they've learned to finally, step it up in those close games and make good plays in those close games. It just seems like it's a whole different defense this year.
Yeah, so as you know, our first round draft pick this year, Kine Lewis, got hurt
Yeah.
in England, so he's been out. But our second, like our corner safeties, Harrison Smith, obviously he's getting up there in age, but he's hitman. He's still going. He's still going strong.
Oh, yeah.
Eric Kendricks, one of the best linebackers in the game right now, obviously, and Zadarius Smith, he's doing great. We got him from the Packers this offseason. He's playing spectacular. But I think a lot of the area we need to work on is filling that corner spot because, Lewis, he was a good draft pick, but he didn't do a whole lot. Like I wish honestly we got Sauce Gardner. Obviously, like he's doing crazy right now for the Jets.
Everybody does.
Seriously, yeah. But yeah, our defense is looking like we're not one of the best defenses in the league. I would say like we have a pretty good defense. Our offense is definitely our strong suit on our team right now, but we have a lot of guys on defense, and they make it work. They make things happen. So
They get it done when they need to get it done.
they
And
do.
as you're saying, I do agree with you. They got one of the better offenses in the league. With Dalvin Cook in the backfield, and then even their backup Alexander Madison, their run game should always be legit. And Dalvin Cook had that 81-yard touchdown run. That kind of just showed how dominant their offense can be, and like how one play can change the game just like that. They were down 17, and they hand Dalvin Cook the ball, and he's gone.
Yeah,
Make
exactly.
it a game.
I was kind of nervous going into this week because our left tackle got hurt during practice, but a new left tackle that filled in, Blake something, I can't remember his name, but he did a good job. He held down the fort, I guess, on that blind side for Kirk, and yeah, our O line's doing pretty good this year. We don't have any like studs on there, but I feel like they work together pretty well with Kirk, and they get shit done.
It's a good solid line all together. And as for the Bills in this game, though, I know you were happy to see their downfall. Allen just did everything against you guys. Had 414 total yards of offense. However, 2 interceptions, as I pointed out earlier.
Yeah.
That Diggs catch, you gotta admit the catch that Diggs had. You would have never expected anyone to have a better catch than that in the same game, and then all
Oh,
of a sudden, but like that catch was incredible as well.
so incredible. Diggs and Jefferson, like they're right by each other in terms of skill level right now. Like, you guys know Diggs used to be on the Vikings, and we traded him for a pick, which we ended up getting Jefferson with. So it was really a win-win for Buffalo and the Vikings in that situation because they got a top 3 receiver. We have a top 3 receiver now. Like, it was a pretty even trade out. One of the most even trades I've ever seen, honestly. Like, we both got 2 dudes who are doing huge things for both our teams. And yeah, I miss Diggs, but Jefferson, I prefer him now. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, he's better and he's younger, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Although Diggs is one of the best receivers in the league, and as you're saying, it was a win-win trade. In my opinion, it sounds funny, but there was a loser in this trade, and it was the Philadelphia Eagles because they drafted Jalen Reagor.
The
Pick
Vikings
before
now
that.
have.
And now the Vikings have him. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, that is just funny, man. I don't know I still can't believe the Eagles did that.
I know.
But
They took Rager a
uh,
few picks before Jefferson, right? And he didn't do anything for the Eagles.
he did not do anything except drop passes.
Yeah.
But hey, it worked out for them. They got AJ Brown, and they're also 8-1 alongside the Vikings. But for the Vikings, at 8-1, second in the NFC, tied for first in the NFC. Actually, I think they might be second because of the loss to the Eagles. As a Vikings fan, as you are, how are you feeling more confident going into this year? What are you thinking like for record wise? I feel like obviously you're going to win the division. The closest team is 4-6. But
Yeah.
like just your output on this whole rest of the season.
Well, I think it really starts with the new coaching staff when Zimmer got fired. That was a huge step up for us. We got O'Connell now, who's a great head coach, and he's doing spectacular things. Obviously, his first season as a head coach, he's leading our team 8-1 right now. We're leading the division. We're leading the league, tied for the best record with the Eagles. And like his ability with like his connection with Kirk Cousins, because I know that Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer had some issues in the locker room, so they didn't connect very well. They weren't running plays that they both liked, so it wasn't really working out. But I heard that the front office took Kirk Cousins' opinion a lot into when they were getting a new head coach, and O'Connell's doing just spectacular things for our team right now, and I'm expecting him to stay there for a while at least. I mean, he's doing obviously great things right now, and I can't see any reason why he's not going to be doing anything worse in the future. So I see him sticking around for a while, and I hope he does because I love him. He's a great guy, and I think him and Kirk are great together, a great duo. And yeah, Kirk's getting a little up there in age. Like maybe in the next few years, he's going to be thinking about drafting a new quarterback. But right now, he's doing great, and that's all I can hope for. All I can expect.
Yeah, that is. I really like O'Connell as a head coach. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see. Coming from the Rams, being the Rams OC, just winning the Super Bowl, and you look at it now. Vikings with O'Connell are doing amazing. The Rams without O'Connell are struggling. Not the Vikings, the Rams, or I don't even know. But the Rams are 3-6 right now. Vikings are 8-1. You can see that big change and how an impact on O'Connell makes, and I think that's very beneficial for the Vikings. And I can definitely see O'Connell getting an extension when his contract is up. I mean, I would give him an extension. I would die for a coach like that for the Saints because Dennis Allen's doing pretty bad. Um, which I don't. I hate talking about my Saints right now because I mean, especially after this last week, a little embarrassing loss against Pittsburgh. Um, but this Viking squad is a great one, as you've been saying. Kirk is getting a little old in age. They got Kellen Mond, from A&M.
Yep.
About I think it might be his second, third year. Um, do you have any faith in him being the next quarterback? You think they need to
I
draft
mean,
it?
they were 0 for 4 in the preseason with him playing, so honestly, not really. But anything can happen.
Anything can happen. I mean, preseason's a preseason.
It is. Maybe he'll be the new next Tom Brady, and Vikings are going to go on a 7 Super Bowl streak. Something like
I
that.
don't know. I don't know
Bring us
about
back
that.
to the 70s.
Yeah, they 0-3 though. 0-3 in that time.
3 Super
But
Bowl losses in 4 years.
yeah, they're
Crazy.
that's kind of upsetting to be a Vikings fan. But
Oh yeah, can't even imagine. I would be so heated if I was lived back in the day and my team lost 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Like, oh my god.
that would be terrible. At least you haven't had to watch your team lose in the playoffs like every year for the past 4 years, then suck for the next last 2 years.
Uh,
And
we
courtesy
don't
of
have
your
any. We
team,
don't even have a Super Bowl ring.
I,
So
we do have a Super Bowl ring.
we don't. Vikings don't have one ring.
Yeah, you don't deserve one.
All right, we'll see what happens this year. We'll see.
We will. And then I've got one more thing for you. Vikings, they play the Cowboys this week.
Mm-hmm.
A big game, 6-3 Cowboys, 8-1 Vikings. Two great teams. I don't know if it's in Dallas or in Minnesota, but what are your thoughts on how do you think this game's gonna go? What do you think's best for the Vikings to come out with a win? And
I mean, obviously, we're going to be looking at huge threats right now, like CeeDee Lamb. Um, he's going to be someone that we're going to have to be looking out for a lot that game. I mean, him and Justin Jefferson, both great receivers in the league, but CD, I mean, he's doing great on my fantasy team right now.
oh yeah,
And Zeke, obviously, we're going to have to lock him down, and Dak Prescott, like it's gonna be a good game. I mean, it might not be as good of a game as it was during the Bills, but I can tell you, like, there's a lot of dogs on the Cowboys, and we're gonna have to do a lot to keep them out of the end zone. Like I said, our defense. I mean, don't have one of the greatest defenses in the league, but we got to hold our own against Cowboys because they got a really good offense going right now. So
yeah,
I'm hoping for a lot this week. Obviously I'm expecting a win. I mean, we beat better teams, so we'll see.
yeah. You guys have beaten better teams, but seem to struggle against the NFC East for some reason. Good thing it's not a primetime game though. Good thing it's not
Yeah.
Sunday night,
Oh my God. Primetime Kirk.
primetime Kirk, man. But that's all I got for you today. If you got anything else, you can get it out right now. And then,
I don't got anything else. No, that was.
well, thanks for coming on for this little section talking about your good old Vikings. And
I appreciate it. I'd
I
love to
hope
be
they have
on any
the best
time.
rest of the season.
When the Vikings win the Super Bowl this year, I'll be back.
Oh yeah, it will also be back when they get eliminated in the divisional round.
We'll see.
All right. All right.
All right.
Well,
Thank you for having me on.
yeah, of course, man. Thanks for coming on. And
Yeah.
good. You're good. You're free to go. And I'm gonna get ready with the rest of
All right.
mine. So with my stuff.
It was good talking to you. I'll see you later, Bryce.
All right. See you later, Zach. All right, and that's Zach Stefanich for you, also known as Chef Steph, Zachy Moon, two nicknames that he loves bringing up. But that's all for that game. Bills, you just can't turn the ball over in that end zone. That game's over if you don't. But today we'll move on to the Thursday night game from last Thursday, Carolina versus Atlanta. And biggest thing I need to talk about for Carolina is Donta Foreman. Donta Foreman, absolutely incredible. Once again, just absolutely destroys the Falcons. 130 yards and a touchdown on Thursday. This rushing offense somehow is getting better without Christian McCaffrey. They're averaging 159 yards per game since the trade. And before that, they were averaging 90. They are averaging almost 70 more yards per game. And this is something that is going under the radar. And I'm not saying that they won this McCaffrey trade because they got rid of him and their offense is becoming better. But it's a little crazy looking at it when you bring in a guy like Donta Foreman, who nobody's really expecting to do well. And he's got 130, he's got over 300 yards in the 2 games he played the Falcons. A big question for me for the Panthers is this QB controversy. Walker, besides he didn't play good, but he didn't play bad. He will not be playing this next week because he has a high-grade ankle sprain. How are they going to deal with this QB controversy? Baker is planning to start next week. So that's kind of explained for how they're going to go through for this week. But if PJ Walker gets healthy again, are they going to stay with him? They do play the Ravens, so I don't expect them to win very much. But this could be a chance for Sam Darnold to get back out there. And that's really all I've got to say for the Panthers. For the Falcons, they looked terrible. I mean, their offense, terrible. Defense got destroyed. They got absolutely manhandled by Foreman. And Mariota looked bad. He looked bad. I mean, everybody saw that pass where he rolled on the ground and tried to throw it and it got intercepted. This is where Falcons fans start saying, hey, if he's going to struggle like that against a team like Carolina, is Desmond Ridder our answer to our quarterback woes after giving away Matt Ryan? And I mean, Matt Ryan's not doing that great in Indianapolis. But is Desmond Ridder your answer? That's something that they need to start thinking about, and especially Arthur Smith needs to start thinking about, because he's never thought about replacing Mariota in a game. But that's something that I think they need to start thinking about. And a big thing too, where is Kyle Pitts in the game plan? They don't use him at all. He's got 7 of the 9 games that he's played in. He has under 30 yards receiving, and Kyle Pitts is being seen as, he would be a tight end that comes in and he's basically a wide receiver. But he's not showing it. They need to get their stuff together, and especially in a weak division that they are in, they can win this division as the leaders, the Buccaneers, who are 5-5. And moving on to the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay played Seattle, won 21-16 this past Sunday in Munich, Germany. And to start off, I'll talk about Tampa, the winning team. Brady looks like himself again. After that game-winning touchdown drive against the Rams, Chris Godwin actually went up to Mike Evans and told him that's the drive that's going to get us back on track. Not just for that game, but for this season. And it's looking like it could possibly become the real deal. I mean, Brady is looking good. He's throwing for a lot of yards. He's getting the ball out, and he's getting touchdowns. But the problem with Tampa Bay is not the offense. It's the defense. I mean, Rashad White in his first start had 22 rushes for 105 yards, and the interior O-line looked a lot better when it came to rushing. running blocking or run blocking. But their defense is looking shaky. I mean, they were up 21-3 in this game, and they only won by 5. They made the Seattle Seahawks almost claw this way back into the game. The Bucks, however, are going back into their byes so they can recollect and think about this at 5-5. Leading their division at 5-5, any team in this division can win it. It's almost like the NFC East back when not the Vikings, the Commanders, sorry, won at 7-9 and played the Bucks in the wild card game. But this Bucks team, they look better, but their defense doesn't. Their offense looks better, but the defense looks bad. And that's something they need to solve because it was the exact opposite at the beginning of the year. And they need to be able to have a good offense, good defense if they want to do anything and get Tom Brady another ring before he retires. As for the Seahawks, having to fly from Seattle all the way to Munich, probably it sucked. And this was one of the worst performances they had. They must have had a bad flight or something because this was bad. The first 3.5 quarters looked like that week 2 loss where they got absolutely destroyed by San Francisco. And if they didn't have that second half of the fourth quarter, this game would have been even worse. I mean, it would have just been bad. Geno Smith didn't look like Geno Smith for the rest of this entire year until that end of the fourth quarter when they ended up getting those last 2 touchdowns. And as a Seattle fan, you're 6-4, which is still pretty good. You've got a good record. Nobody is expecting you to do this. A lot of people expected you 5-12, 4-13, 6-11, and you're 6-4 going into your bye week. They just did not look like their team. They were on a 4-game winning streak, and that is not a team that you expect to be in a 4-game winning streak when you watch that game. Tom Brady obviously looks like himself again, so like they had to deal with that. But this team needs their defense to step up. Their defense looked bad this game. They've always had a good defense, it seems like. And their only takeaway, I'm pretty sure, was the one where they tried to throw to Tom Brady. But you can't give up 10 of 15 conversions on third down and expect anything to happen. They've got a lot to talk about to keep their mojo up that they had if they want to win in 2 weeks. They've got their bye week, but I mean they are playing the 2-7 Raiders on November 27th. Just an ugly game. And I mean, what do you expect? There's an NFC South team in the game, and any NFC South team game is going to be ugly, including this next one. Pittsburgh versus New Orleans. Pittsburgh won this game 20-10. Starting off with the Steelers, it's official. The Steelers cannot win without TJ Watt. They've won one game whenever he's been out in his entire career, and that was this year against the Bucks, another NFC South team. Despite the stats that he had in this last game, TJ Watt made a huge difference, drawing attention from the O-line. He only had 4 tackles, a QB hit, but this defense just looked a lot better. They look a lot better with TJ Watt in there, and despite not having Minka Fitzpatrick, they still had 2 interceptions, and they held the Saints to 3-11 on third downs. But the biggest thing for me is their running game looked so much better this game. 217 yards on the ground against a historically, when it comes to recent times, very good rushing defense. I mean, this team, the New Orleans Saints, have not given up more than, I believe, 3 rushers over 100 yards in the past 3 years, probably. I think it was Miles Sanders and then Cordell Patterson. Those are the last 2 it's been in the past 2-3 years. And they gave up 217 yards on the ground. That is just something you love to see as a Pittsburgh fan and hate to see it as I'm a Saints fan. I'm a Saints fan. I hate seeing this. But Najee Harris looked like himself from last year. He had 99 yards, 5 yards per carry. And the biggest thing, though, is he fumbled for the first time in his career. But that doesn't matter because they ended up winning. 217 yards on the ground is great for them. However, for the Saints, I don't know where to start. As a Saints fan, it hurts to watch this team play at 3-7. It shows that Andy Dalton should not be starting. Jameis Winston needs to be back on that field. throwing the ball because he will force feed players like Chris Olave who get the ball and they make plays, as I talked about him last week. He has now 658 receiving yards on 47 catches, which is a great stat line for a rookie. He leads all rookies in both of those. But it's just, if he's getting 4 receptions a game, that's not acceptable. He is the wide receiver 1 on that Saints team right now with Michael Thomas out. He needs to be getting 6, 7, 8 at least for this team to be successful. And let's talk about the biggest thing. They're forgetting about their top 5 running back in Alvin Kamara. He is an absolute workhorse. He's an absolute man among boys. And he's only running the ball 8 times and getting the ball passed to him 3 times. This is not acceptable if you want to be a good Saints offense. I mean, a team that used to use him 30 times a game, almost 40 times a game, he's using him 11 times. And it's kind of relating to their records. And, you use them 30-something times a game, you're going to have a winning record. You use them 11 times a game, you're going to suck. You got to give him the ball more. You give him the ball in open space, and he's gone. A big bright spot for them, though, alongside Chris Olave, would be Jawan Johnson. He is starting to solidify himself a little bit more as their tight end, despite having Taysom Hill. I wouldn't really list Taysom Hill as the tight end because of how many positions he's played this year. But just my big thing for the Saints is give Kamara the ball and stop turning the ball over. This entire season has been turnovers and penalties. They're undisciplined. And someone needs to knock some sense into them because clearly Dennis Allen's not. Clearly he isn't. And I'm going to move on to the next game so I just don't go on a rant. Kansas City versus Jacksonville. I did not watch this game, but I made sure to look back and look at a recap or whatnot. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. This Mahomes-Kelsey connection is amazing, and Mahomes looks like that MVP. I said last week Lamar's my MVP alongside Michael. But he's not anymore. I think Mahomes is going to be the MVP. Mahomes is absolutely on a different tier of his own, especially with Josh Allen's little decline that he's had the past 2 weeks. And they lost Juju. They lost him. And Kadarius Toney kind of stepped it up, 4 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown. And that led the receivers on the Chiefs squad. But obviously it wasn't the highest with Travis Kelce. And this Chiefs team is just absolutely dominant, whoever they play. And losing Tyreek Hill didn't do anything to them. They are in line for once again another AFC West championship. They're already pretty much almost there to clinch it. They're going to be 8-2 if they win next week, and then the team behind them will be 5-5. This team will win their division again, and this team will make it deep playoff run like they always do. And as for Jacksonville, the losers of this game, who lost 27-17, they didn't look bad. I thought they looked okay, despite a 10-point loss. They've already made so many good improvements this year when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne growing as a workhorse. I don't see them taking away his workload. Doug Peterson is looking like a great coach addition for them after having the absolute shit show that was Urban Meyer. But the biggest thing for this game is the reason they lost is because of their fail to score on opportunities. They failed scoring off of an onside kick. They failed scoring on 2 of the 3 turnovers they had, and they had a touchdown wiped away by a penalty. And they need to take that away. This team will be a good team in the future, but as of right now, they aren't able to compete with those top-level teams, which they kind of did, though, against the Chiefs. But they won't win these type of games. And I will move on to the next game. Detroit to Chicago. Detroit Lions won 31-30. I apologize. And my big takeaway for the Lions was Amon-Ra St. Brown is back. He's back. Yeah, he had 119 yards on 10 catches. And he's the 11th player since 1950 to record 135 or more receptions in his first 25 games. Props to him, and I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm super high on him after what he did at the end of the year last year. And then he finally got rid of that streak that he had fewer than 8 receptions, and he finally got rid of it. He had 5 straight games doing that. And now he's kind of back. My big thing for the Detroit Lions is the committee backfield is good with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. However, give DeAndre Swift the ball more. Come on, he's carrying the ball 6 times. And when he used to be able to carry a workload before Jamal Williams came, he looked phenomenal. He looked like the future of the Lions. He looked like the next franchise running back. They don't give him a chance. They need to give this man a chance because he can be a dog. And speaking of a dog, Justin Fields is that guy. He is a dog for the Bears. And they're finally being able to unleash this potential of rushing offense. 5th straight game with 200 rushing yards. Justin Fields, however, does need to kind of fix it on the passing. Pick 6 in this game. But he is connecting with Cole Kmet, who had back-to-back weeks with 2 receiving touchdowns. I just love seeing Justin Fields thrive. I mean, 132 yards off of design runs by himself. And then the 67-yard rushing touchdown. This is 2 straight weeks he's had that many yards. I mean, a 60-plus yard touchdown. Now, the Bears, they lose their close games. They need to learn how to win these close games, and they need to stop getting penalized. They had 9 penalties. And it just slows down their game, and they've got so many errors. They have like an extra point miss after that big old touchdown. This team is a dominant rushing team, but they're going to have to learn to win games by going through the air because they can't just run and win games because if their defense isn't going to step up and their offense is going to keep making mistakes, they won't win games. But an offense that is really thriving is Miami. Miami won 39-17 against Cleveland. And the big thing for me for Miami was, wow. They had 195 yards on the ground, and Tua had 285 yards in the air for 3 touchdowns. And Jeff Wilson Jr., what a pickup for Miami, man. They love picking up former running backs from the Niners. It's funny. Because you think of it, Raheem Mostert had 65 yards and a score off of just 8 carries. And then Jeff Wilson Jr. had 119 off of 17 carries with a touchdown. Both players were former 49ers. And the fact that they're getting this rushing game solidified alongside of having Tua, who is dominating through the air with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki, this team is scary. This offense is scary. This is Tua's 3rd straight game with 3 touchdown passes. There might not be a single defense in the league that will contain this offense when they're on. And that's something that I look at when you look at teams, if they're a playoff team. And in my opinion, this is a good contender as they are now in first in their division after the Bills loss at 7-3. This team can make a deep playoff run, and don't be surprised if they are playing in late January, early February. And defensively as well, they looked great. They had 15 QB pressures and 3 sacks. However, the Browns aren't very good. I hate to say it, but they're not good. I mean, they got annihilated. This defense they have is supposed to be a top defense in the league with guys like Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett, but they're not going to succeed if they're only stopping the team once. Dolphins didn't punt all game. The only time they got rid of the ball, didn't score, was when they had turnover on downs deep in Cleveland's territory. It's just this team's season's pretty much already over at 3-6. Deshaun Watson's still not going to be back for another 3 weeks. So this team's season's over. I mean, they play Buffalo and then they play Tom Brady, which will probably put them at 3-8, and that means their season will be done. They're going to need a miracle to happen. And speaking of miracles, wow, 7-2. The New York Giants, did I say that right? I don't think that belongs in the same sentence together. But it's true. It's happening. They bounced back after that loss 2 weeks ago against Seattle. With the bye week, they got to recollect and stay on track and make sure they don't lose a bad one to Houston, who is 1-7-1. I'm not going to give them too much credit for this win because they only won by 8. But they relied on Saquon and Daniel Jones to get it done, and they did what they had to do. Daniel Jones only had 4 incompletions for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns, the highest passer rating out of any quarterback in a game this season. And Saquon Barkley had 152 rushing yards. This is how the Giants win games. If they are both succeeding in the back, those two in the backfield with Daniel Jones and Saquon, this team will win games. At 7-2, the team looks way better than anybody expected. And my big thing is this is a question of did Brian Dable truly turn this squad around? Or is it a case of them playing teams that are weak? You look at their schedule, they really haven't played very good teams. Brian Dable has been a great coach, however. I mean, with a big, big win first game of the season against Tennessee, that's really the only game I can really think on the top of my head. That was a good win. With their losses against Seattle and Dallas, who are two pretty good teams. You just got to look at them and say, is Brian Dable turning this team around, or are they just playing bad teams? In my opinion, they're getting turned around because they are 7-2. They're one of those bad teams for the past how many years, and they're 7-2 this year. A bad team isn't just going to be 7-2 because they're playing also bad teams. They got a top running back in the league, and then Daniel Jones is starting to prove himself. And I see the Giants being successful down the line more and more and more. However, they did play the Texans, which has a lot of woes. The only two positives I will say for the Texans is Dameon Pierce and Derek Stingley Jr., they're two rookies. Stingley is yet to give up a touchdown. And if Sauce Gardner wasn't in the league right now, Stingley would be my defensive rookie of the year. Either him or Tariq Woolen. Next game, Tennessee beat Denver 17-10. I mean, pretty much given. Denver's terrible. But Titans finally found a way to win through the air. Nick Westbrook-Akine had 5 receptions for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. Winning by 7 against this Denver squad without really having that big of an impact from Derrick Henry. Sure, go ahead. But this team's 6-3 for a reason because they have Derrick Henry. And the Tennessee Titans, I get it. You want to be able to pass. But utilizing Derrick Henry to the highest potential like they always do is the reason why they're always going to be good. And that's really all I got to say about the Titans. For the Broncos, this offense is disgustingly bad. It's just bad. This offense is terrible. They've got 12 touchdowns all season from a team that has Russell Wilson at quarterback, Cortland Sutton at wide receiver, and Jerry Jeudy, who granted did hurt his left ankle on the first play of the game. They've got Melvin Gordon, now Latavius Murray. They just don't look good on offense, and they need to figure it out, or else Nathaniel Hackett's he's gone regardless. They need to figure this out if they want to have a good next year. Not this year, though. And for the next game. We'll go to the late slates of games. How about that? How about Jeff Saturday, man, winning his first game as a head coach? Doesn't really matter. It was one game. Jonathan Taylor's back. That's all that matters. But who else would it be that he comes back against than the 2-7 Raiders? And I mean, Matt Ryan's back, playing pretty decent, 222 yards and a touchdown with a 40-yard run as well. I mean, of course, it's anyone but the Raiders. I mean, anyone but the Raiders is going to stop Matt Ryan on that. And the Colts should have some optimism from that. Just don't think Jeff Saturday is going to be a great coach just from one game. But for the Raiders, I feel like I'm having a trend talking about these AFC West teams like this, besides the Chargers and Chiefs, so 2 of them. But the trend is just Las Vegas needs to shut it down this year. It's over. You're not winning the division. You're not going to the playoffs. Shut this whole thing down. Fire Josh McDaniels. Tank. Get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud and start all over. Get rid of Derek Carr. You can trade him. You can get some assets for him. This team is just dysfunctional. And I mean, they're wasting Devontae Adams. He's on a 5-year contract with the Raiders. And if I was Devontae Adams, I'd want out. They're 0-6 in one-score games this year, and that's the definition of why they are 2-7. You look at last year, their big determining factor in being 10-7 and making the playoffs was the fact that they had a good record in one-score games, and they were able to deliver in the fourth quarter. And this year, it's been a whole different story. And this Raiders team is looking like the early 2010s Raiders. And the next game was a battle of backup QBs. Colt McCoy versus John Wolford. Yes, you heard that right, John Wolford. The Cardinals came out with a 10-point win. Colt McCoy finally got rid of the Cardinals' skin of losing 4 of the past 5, and he played before Kyler Murray. But my big thing for Arizona is at 4-6, can they make a playoff push? If they want to make a playoff push, Kyler Murray is going to have to be healthy and drop that Xbox controller and pick up the film, because with Kyler Murray healthy and ready, this team is good. As we saw, they started 7-0 last year. As for the Rams, the Rams makes me so happy to see this. They are falling apart. After last year, with their win now mentality, it is showing that they wanted to win then, and they don't care. They are 3-6. The defending Super Bowl champs, Los Angeles Rams, are 3-6 and last in their division. And with that, they also have lost Cooper Kupp to an ankle injury as he was placed on the IR. I think this team's season's over at 3-6. If they're going to win, they need Cooper Kupp. And also with Stafford being on concussion protocol, they're going to need that duo of Stafford and Kupp to win games, as Kupp had 72 receptions going into this game, and that was first in the league. I don't see the Rams making the playoffs, and I think the true Super Bowl hangover happened to them. As for the next teams, we got Green Bay versus Dallas, the last game in the late slate. The Packers are reviving themselves. This was a must-win game for Green Bay, and the difference between 4-6 and 3-7 was life or death for them in the NFC playoff race. Christian Watson finally had a breakout game, 4 catches, 3 touchdowns, 107 yards. They looked amazing, the connection between Rodgers and Watson, and it's good to see that he's finally doing well, staying healthy, not dropping the passes. He's a great waiver wire pickup if I were a fantasy guy. I know for a fact I picked him up. Just the Packers looked great in this game. They looked better in the second half. And the defense locked down against such a high-powered Cowboys offense. And it was a great way to start a winning streak for this team and start with back-to-back MVP Aaron Rodgers at the helm at quarterback. As for Dallas, they were coming into this game. Dallas was 195-0 when they were up 14+ going into the fourth quarter, and they fell apart. Mike McCarthy's return to Green Bay was not how he envisioned it to be, especially going into the fourth quarter when you're up 28-14. And also in a division with the 8-1 Eagles and 7-2 Giants, losing a game like that and going down to 6-3 instead of 7-2 cannot happen, as you now are third in your division, but still in the playoffs, obviously. You cannot drop a game like that. And next week, the Cowboys play the 8-1 Vikings, which is a scary team after they've shown what they can do with second-half comebacks, and you just gave up a 14-point comeback to the Packers. And that's all for the late slate games. We're moving on to Sunday night. I liked watching this game as the Niners won 22-16. Everything lined up perfectly for the Niners. Their offense looked well. They're fresh off of a bye. Players returning from injury in Los Angeles was missing a lot of players. But they barely pulled one out. Justin Herbert just got shut down in the second half. This Niners offense has a trillion threats on their offense, and they still just really aren't putting that many points up. And that's when you kind of think, is it Garoppolo's fault? I don't think so. But McCaffrey looked good. Debo looks good. But where is George Kittle? Kittle hasn't done anything this year. He had 1 catch this game. 2 targets, 21 yards. I get it. Not every guy's going to have 100 yards, 60 yards, 70 yards, 80 yards every week. But the fact that he only has 1 catch, they should involve him more and more in their passing game. I mean, Kittle is a great blocker, but he's also a great pass catcher. But as for the Chargers, dealing with a lot of injuries kind of didn't really help them. They were losing Keenan Allen and Mike Williams this game. And Herbie just looked good for how his weapons were. And Austin Eckler looks amazing, like always. It's just you can't have everybody hurt. You're 5-4. You're playing the Chiefs next week. There's an urgency for your players to get healthy, like Joey Bosa, who was placed on IR week 3, and he still hasn't came back. And for the last game of the week, I'm just trying to wrap this up quick. It's been about 3/4 of an hour. So the last game, this was the biggest one in my opinion. Washington Commanders 32, Philadelphia Eagles 21. Now the Commanders finally did what they do. 2 years ago, they beat the 11-0 Steelers and crushed their undefeated streak. This year, they beat the 8-0 Eagles. And Washington finally understand what they need to do, the run game. They found out that sticking to the run and not falling in love with getting the ball to every guy who's a wide receiver on their team works for them. But they won't be able to run the ball as much as they did. They ran the ball 49 times. They can be more run heavy because it works. They got Brian Robinson Jr. and Antonio Gibson, 2 really good running backs, J.D. McKissick as well. It makes the team unpredictable. If they run the ball well, everybody's going to start committed on that run, and then the pass is going to be over. But they need to have that as their blueprint to be moving forward. As for quarterback controversy, Carson Wentz is going to be eligible to be activated off IR this week. But Taylor Heineke is 3-1 since Carson Wentz has been hurt. I really like Taylor Heineke, and I think that Taylor Heineke means more to his teammates as he had that amazing game against Tampa Bay in the wild card 2 years ago. I know everybody talks about that game, but Taylor Heineke looks good these past 4 games, and I think that he needs to stay as the starter until he consistently has bad games, which we haven't really seen this year from him. As for the Eagles, they just did not. Oh, man. They just looked bad. I mean, they were just so sloppy. They did not look like an undefeated team at all. They looked like a 2-7 team. They've turned the ball over 4 times. And this is the first time this entire year they have not won the turnover battle, and that's a big thing. Their rushing defense especially looked bad. Who, with missing Jordan Davis, kind of just shows a lot. They rushed the ball for 29 times, the Commanders did in the first half, and they got 100 yards. And they gobbled up 23 minutes and 49 seconds of possession. The Eagles had a little over 6 minutes in the first half. That is absolutely insane. And I mean, they've got the Colts next. They're going to have to get their rushing defense fixed if they're going to want to stop Jonathan Taylor, who's coming off of a great game. And that's going to be all for the games in Week 10 today. That's going to be all for me today as well. A little bit of a recap week, my thoughts, opinions. Tomorrow, we'll be having a Week 11 picks with Cameron. And that'll be a good one. We got a little bit of a surprise for that one, but that's all for today. Checking on your football. Tomorrow we've got the Titans and Packers. I'll tell you right now, we're gonna pick them on tomorrow, but I'll tell you my pick now. I've got the Packers winning. But that's all for me today. As I've said, make sure if you're watching on YouTube to like, subscribe, comment what you think. Follow the socials will be in the YouTube description, and then if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure to follow the podcast. For the new episodes, they come out at least once a week, and I'd like to say thank you one more time, and I'm going to be out on this one. I'll see y'all tomorrow in the next episode. Peace.